I would like to call the Wichita Public Schools Board of Education meeting for July the 30th, 2020 to order. Wichita Public Schools will be the district of choice in our region where all students and staff are empowered to dream, believe, and achieve. Mike,
Moment of silence.
please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mike?
Statement about the COVID-19 modified meeting format. My name is Mike Willamy, Clerk of the Board. This regularly scheduled public meeting of the Wichita Public Schools is taking place at the North High Lecture Hall, 1437 Rochester in Wichita, Kansas. Due to the Governor's declaration of emergency and due to health and safety concerns that exist because of COVID-19, no members of the public are present at this meeting. This meeting is available to be viewed live by the public in the following ways: WPS TV on Cox Cable Channel 20, the district's website at www.usd259.org/WPS-TV online, and live stream apps for phone, Roku, and Apple TV by searching WPS TV. Following the conclusion of today's meeting, this meeting will be available on the WPS YouTube channel. It will also be rebroadcast on WPS TV Cox Cable Channel 20. The agenda for this meeting was published on July 28, 2020 at www.usd259.org/BOE under the BOE Meetings Agendas and Minutes tab. The news media also received the main agenda and a portfolio containing the appendices. Revisions made after publication but prior to this meeting were updated on July 29th at 5:40 p.m. and July 30th at 9:35 a.m. This version is being displayed at the meeting. At this meeting, all board members, district staff, and presenters will identify themselves by name and position before they speak to assist the public in following the meeting. The usual public communications item that allows members of the public to speak at board meetings has been removed from the agenda. In its place, an email public comments item has been added. Information about how patrons can submit email comments is included on page 1 of the BOE agenda. Public communications will not be placed back in the agenda until the public again starts attending BOE meetings. There will be an executive session at the end of this meeting. The following procedure will be used concerning the executive session. A motion will be presented by a board member that states the subject matter and justification under the Kansas Open Meetings Act for going into executive session. The motion will state the time the board will return from executive session. The live broadcast of the meeting will not end until the board returns from executive session and adjourns the meeting. Thank you. Our next item is email public comment. 16 members of the public have provided their emails to us. Those emails will be added to the BOE minutes for this meeting and were distributed to the board this morning.
Thank you. We did get 16 letters concerning the North High mascot, and I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge these communications and many other emails that have been sent to the board regarding the mascot at North High School. I want to thank you for taking time to engage in this important business with us and to send us your thoughts and ideas. The board is committed to listening to and engaging our district stakeholders in these important decisions about education. Specifically, we have received a request about the Wichita Board of Education having an open discussion about changing the North High mascot due to the derogatory nature of the Redskins mascot to the Native American community. This letter came to us around the same time as the national sporting teams were having similar conversations. Following our stated intention to discuss this item at the July 30th meeting, additional letters came in with the support for and against this issue. In addition, many of us have received feedback from constituents, and I can tell you this, North High alums love North High School and its traditions. As a longtime educator in this community, and now your board president, I agree that now is the time to consider a change. I want to acknowledge two things. First, because our meetings remain limited to public access due to COVID-19, and in order to honor public requests to be present during this discussion and to address the BOE directly, we will not have a scheduled agenda item on this topic today, as we previously had indicated. We will honor the public's desire to be present and to engage in this discussion. And will entertain an agenda item and participation that can occur when we have more direct access to the public. Secondly, I would like to direct the superintendent if she would work with district leadership staff and our Native American Program Director, Dal Dombo, and Principal Stephanie Wasco to assemble a committee that will be made up of stakeholders and will be starting this discussion. I'd like to see them develop a timeline and potential questions for discussion, and then bring that body of work back to this table for BOE consideration. This request does not predetermine that we will or will not make a change. This is only a very important subject and worthy of more input and community and board deliberation. So Superintendent Thompson, if you could please assemble that committee and have them get the information to us so that we can have a public discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
Next item, Mike. Oh, before we do that, because we do have one of our members calling in remotely, I will ask board members to identify yourselves and your district, starting with Ron.
Ron Rosales, 6th District.
Stan Research, District 4.
Mike Rohde, District 5.
Cheryl Logan, at large.
Ernestine Crable, District 3.
Ben Blankley, District 1.
Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2, attending remotely.
Thank you. Next item, Mike.
Under Education, proposed revisions to 2020-21 district calendar. The Board of Education participated in BOE workshops related to the Future Ready Return to School plan on July 13th, July 15th, July 17th, 2020 at noon meetings in the North High Lecture Hall. Topics included operational supports, learning options, and employee supports. On July 20th, 2020, the board participated in a special meeting at noon in the North High Lecture Hall. The board took the following 3 actions as part of an additional review of the Future Ready Return to School plan. 1, approve the district's 3 learning models that will be available to families: on-site, My School Remote, and the Education Imagine Academy. 2, approve the Learning Model Decision-Making Guide as the approved protocol to determine the appropriate learning model during the COVID-19 pandemic. 3, accepted Kansas Governor Laura Kelly's recommendation of starting schools after Labor Day. Direct this to the District Calendar Committee on July 28th, report back to the board on July 30th, and for the board to adopt a final calendar on July 30th with the understanding that the board cannot afford to go past the current end date and incur any extra expenses. During the board's discussion of the district calendar, it was clarified that after Labor Day means September 8th or September 9th, 2020. The district still must satisfy the state mandate of 1,116 hours for students in the schedule. Today's item provides an opportunity for the board to review and approve proposed revisions to the 2020-21 district calendar.
Dr. Thompson?
Good afternoon. We have a recommended calendar before you for your approval, which starts exactly what he stated. We are recommending it the start date of September the 8th, and the district has satisfied the 1,116 hours for students in this particular schedule.
Okay. Do we have a presentation?
We never usually do that. We actually just have the calendar for you all to review and approve.
Okay. And at this calendar meeting, I was present and so was Ron Rosales. Ron, do you have anything that you'd like to share about what happened at that meeting?
I just really want to thank all the people that were involved in the expeditious manner in which it was approved. And again, I think everybody there was in agreement. And this is my first meeting, and I heard the comment that this was very quick. So again, thanks for all the people, Sean especially for heading that up, and Dr. Irving as well. And as far as I'm looking at it, and at the meeting, I really didn't have any other questions. Just see what all the other rest of the board members might input.
Just for the record, so that people, this is Alicia Thompson, superintendent, and I just wanted to commend the team. There were approximately, and I'm going to look out to my colleagues, about 40 folks that participated in the calendar committee. And that calendar committee, just so that we know that all board members were not present at this meeting, that the meeting consisted of 2 board members, which is typical for any calendar that we put together during the school term. Typically, our calendar committee consists of our union representation. We have parents. We typically have administration. You have teachers. So there usually is a wide variety of people that are inclusive of the calendar committee. So I just wanted to acknowledge the calendar committee and the folks that served on it, and just to clarify that there were 2 board members present at that meeting, which is allowable. So thank you for that.
Okay. And I just want to comment that as you look at the calendar, you can see that our new teachers come back on the 3rd. All of our staff comes back on the 5th. And we have staff working and preparing for the year, because this is a very different year this year, clear through September the 4th. We will have, in September, our orientation for our 6th and 9th graders on the 4th, as we've done in the past. And then all students will report back on the 8th of September, right, the day after Labor Day. And then you can see that we've still been able to figure out how, or the committee was able to figure out how to end the year before Memorial Day. So, Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, yes, I do have a question. I was looking at the calendar, and we have Thanksgiving's is 2 days, the 26th and the 27th, and a release day before that, which is conference release day, which I'm assuming means we want parents to discuss their results with their children, about their children. What is a conference release day?
Yes, you typically, this is in your contract, and this typically happens with all of the other calendars that we have had with conference release day. So when teachers do conferences, they actually can't get all the conferences done in a normal school day. So what happens is they have to work into the evening, and then we repay those teachers back with a conference release day. So that's the day that they get off for being able to have conferences and be able to stay an extended time past their contract, and we just make that up at conference release time. And that's typical with any calendar. Actually, conference release has always been that day before we go out for Thanksgiving. So that's just what we just kept it there and just continued on with the fall recess.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because not having a day off from school the day before Thanksgiving means nobody can travel.
Yes.
And I just wanted to make sure that everybody's traveling the day before and not the day of, and that they understood that. That was important.
Yes, sir.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Ben Blakely?
Yes, Ben Blankley, District 1. I just wanted to note that our proposed spring break has moved from what we had originally. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. Oh, you were
Go
on the
ahead.
committee. No.
Well, because of how the calendar fell with the calendar days in each quarter, we moved that spring break by 1 week, down 1 week from the 15th down to the 22nd. And we've always tried to match to the universities, but the universities are not going to have spring break this year. So that's not an issue for us now. But that moving spring break by 1 week is the biggest change on this calendar.
Yeah, last year's spring break is the longest spring break I think we've ever had. It wasn't a break. We continued teaching. But,
Yeah, we had 4 months of spring break.
right? Yeah. In a general sense, I know a lot of people aren't really school calendar aficionados. In like a general sense, can you just explain how we made up essentially 3 weeks of time on the front end within the year?
I know some of the answers, so I'm going to ask my colleague to join me in this discussion. We typically, in our school year, have lots of other things that are built in, such as snow days. We have in-service days. And a lot of the days that we were able to make up came from the in-service days being moved to the front, because we still have some contact time that we still get for in-service days. So we moved those, and we were able to garner some time there, as well as our snow days. We were able to garner some days there. And then I'm going to turn to Dr. Irvin now that she's there. I was just starting the conversation, and then she can finish it out.
Well, I think you pretty much summarized most of it. So we were able to make up that time from the front start of our staff reporting on August 5th through that September 4th date. We are able to receive credit for contact as our teachers are engaged in professional development, as well as their interaction with our families, perhaps with discussing individual student plans or IEPs. And so we're able to receive credit towards our contact hours during that time. Additionally, what we were able to do was to remove almost all of the in-service days that occurred during the academic year. There were several of those that were removed, and so that also allowed us to make up those hours. And then lastly, the inclement weather days. We were able to use those that we often have as extra days. And so thinking about in the future, if we have to consider that it is not safe for us to pick up students or not safe for our students to travel to school due to inclement weather, we will need to look at alternatives such as remote learning on those days, because we don't have that bank of extra days built up for this academic year with this particular calendar.
So essentially, what we're being presented is like almost a bare minimum. Like there's very little wiggle room in terms of the hours.
That is definitely correct. As a matter of fact, I think you have 6 hours left. We went over enough to be able to have 6 hours.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Stan Reeser?
Stan Reeser, District 4. I move that we adopt the 2020-21 district calendar with the revisions.
It's been moved by Stan. Is there a second?
I second it.
Ernestine Crable seconds. I'm seeing no further discussion. so you can cast your vote whenever I can find my
We're
machine.
voting,
My hand.
we're voting
Oh,
aloud because.
That's right.
yeah.
We're voting aloud. Thank you. Because we have one of our members remotely.
Shirley, this is Julie Hedrick, District 2. Since I don't have a way to, click in and say I want to make a comment, I'm sorry for the interruption. But I would just like to make a comment that I very much appreciate the calendar committee's work because I was hoping that we were going to be able to keep both Christmas break and spring break, and they accomplished that plus some of the additional holidays. So I'm pleased with this calendar as well. Thank you.
Yeah. And I might say that our unions were pleased with the calendar as well. They felt very comfortable with this because they understand that everybody has to give a little this year, and that's what we've done. So with that, we are going to vote, starting with Ron.
Ron Rosales, District 6, yes.
Stan Reeser, District 4, yes.
Mike Rhodey, District 5, yes.
Cheryl Logan at large, yes.
Ernestine Crable, District 3, yes.
Ben Blankley, District 1, yes.
Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2, yes.
Motion passes 7-0. So we have a new calendar. Okay, Sean?
Okay, so as we began, we just wanted to take the time during the calendar portion of our agenda to share some data with you around another survey that we conducted with our teachers and our classified, certified and classified, pretty much our entire staff. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to my colleague, Mr. Sean Hudspeth.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Sean Hudspeth, Chief Human Resources Officer for the district. Thank you very much, President Logan and board members today, to allow me just a few minutes here to kind of give you a little bit more information. As Dr. Thompson alluded, we sent out quite a few communications to our staff and team. In recent weeks, we did send out an email to all of them asking about the intent to return to work so we could properly figure out staffing models and things like that, knowing with the three options, the Education Imagine Academy or the My School Remote, or those that want to return to the buildings, what that would look like. So as you see up here on the screen, you see the intent to return school-based employee inquiry. We had just under 3,000 certified employees who were participants, and right at 911 classified employees who were participants. And this was designed to collect that specific expression from school-based employees on their intent to return to work this fall, and for both categories and their preferences. What you will see here is the data that was returned. From our certified staff, we had 33.4% who said that they would return to work with confidence. 66% of those were indicated that they would return with concern for safety and self of others. We had less than 1% in will seek leave or seeking to retire prior to the beginning of the year. So that is where you see the certified staff. On the classified side, it was 38% willing to return with confidence, 59.5% returning with concern for safety of self and others, 1.9% seeking some sort of a leave, and less than 1% or 0.7% will retire prior to the beginning of the year. So those were how the numbers came out of the data. In the teaching model preference, this was, again, just for the classified staff. We asked them if they could return, what type of teaching model they would prefer. Over half, 53.5%, said they would prefer a face-to-face assignment within the district. 15.6% preferred a My School Remote assignment. 1.4% said the Education Imagine Academy, with 29.2% equally comfortable with any combination of the three that were presented to you in the last board meeting. Only 0.4% said that they did not intend to return one way or another. So very low margin there. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to present that to you, to provide you with that feedback and kind of let you know what our staff was telling us as we tried to engage them as quickly and as best as we saw fit.
I have a question about when was this survey taken?
Testing my memory here. That went out, I want to say, Yeah,
It was,
within 2
I
weeks
think it was
ago.
right after our last,
Yeah.
the last presentation that we had on
Oh, it was the
on
same
the
day.
17th, on the 20th. We,
20th.
yeah, then we sent the survey out, and we had a week span of time in which, it was less than a week, I think, maybe.
Correct.
Of time that we had them fill that out, and now we have the results.
Okay.
So it
So
went
it
out
was
about 2
recent.
weeks ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just closed the survey just this Monday.
Yeah, good, because that's what I wanted to make sure this was current data, and it very much is. I mean, within 10 days ago.
Yes, with the
So-
help of Wendy Johnson and the strategic communications team, we closed the survey at 5 p.m. this past Monday, and we started going over the results as of Tuesday morning this week. So this is as a result of the last 48 to 72 hours.
Because I'm really pleased to see how this came out. It looks like we're not going to have any trouble staffing any model that we have. I mean, we've got people that want to do each kind, but we also have, enough that we can move people around if we need to.
And we would like to think so. I mean, we've spoke to a lot of people, and everybody just seems to want to pitch in and help. I know there are still always going to be concerns, and we're happy to vet through those. But I think that the biggest, leap of faith is once you get your foot in the door and get back to your building and see your surroundings, you'll find, based on even our COVID flow charts that we've distributed to you here today and that you're going to cover later in the meeting, that there's been a lot of work to go into making it a safe environment for all.
Right. And I think you're exactly right. Once our staff actually gets back and sees everything that's been put in place to help keep them safe, they will feel even more comfortable being with us.
Yes.
So, Ernestine?
So the face-to-face, where we have over 50% that want to come back face-to-face, we can augment that with some that are equally comfortable with all three if we have more in that, or we can augment the My School remote with some of those that are equally comfortable in all three. So there's not likely to be a shortage in any particular area.
No, we don't see that shortage at all, and we'll be getting data from our secondary and elementary superintendents that, the principals will be sending in to us. So if we need to shift some teachers that are willing to do face-to-face, they may have to do the My Remote School. But remember, they're still in their buildings, they're still in their classrooms as far as that goes. But a lot of that, Ms. Crable, will be determined on once we get our enrollment numbers and see where we need to shift staff and how they're going to be teaching in either one of the models.
How is the online and in-person enrollment of families going? Are they stepping up, or are they still being cautious? Or maybe that's somebody else's question.
I'm going to have to defer that.
Yeah. Specific numbers, I know my guy can pull them up right away, but what I can tell you is that our enrollment is needing to be, that people need to come enroll. I
Get
understand
enrolled
that
right
families,
now.
Parents think that, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, parents kind of think that, well, I'm going to wait until I figure out and feel comfortable with the models. We understand that, and we'll continue to educate and give examples of what things will look like, and we'll continue to do that over the next few months. But we really, even if you're going to do My Remote, this is another piece that's starting to become an issue. Parents will fill out and enroll, and they'll say that I'm going to do My School Remote. They need to still fill out all of the paperwork that goes along with that, because every piece of paper is financially implications for us. So if you are in My Remote and you have not filled out your free and reduced lunch form, even though you may not be eating free and reduced lunches at school, because you're on My School Remote, which they will still be available, food still will be available to you, you're still going to eat because you're going to be able to come get your food. But if you don't fill out that free and reduced lunch form, we're not getting money to feed you, so we just miss out on money to do that. So what's happening is we're having a difficult time getting parents to understand the significance of going ahead and enrolling. Even if you're not sure what model you're going to use, you still need to enroll. And then if you decide later that you want to do My School Remote or you want to be on site, at least we have the count. Because what we're doing is struggling to be able to even tell these teachers who have made their mind up what they're going to do. We don't have the students enrolled to know what, how to really know how many students we're going to have. So I just strongly encourage folks. I know we still have questions, and I know there's not all the answers for families sometimes to make all of the decisions they want to make, need to make their decision. That's fair. But we still need you to enroll. If you're going to partake in anything that relates to the Wichita Public Schools, you're going to have to enroll and fill out all of the appropriate paperwork so that the funding comes so that we can provide these options to you, if that only makes sense.
I hope
So-
the local media will get that word out. Hear us, local media? We need to get the word out to parents. They're sometimes saying, oh, we're so confused. Well, enroll and we will be able, you can change your mind, but just get enrolled so we know that you're coming.
And you can enroll online very conveniently.
That's right, you can enroll online.
And if you have questions and you're not sure how to enroll or something didn't go right, we have a hotline. And it's 973, what's our hotline number? Somebody's gonna tell me. Hold, get your pens ready in the community because we have a number for you to call. And the number is 973 for our homework hotline. Not homework, Lord have mercy.
Enrollment.
Our enrollment hotline, they're looking. 973 4285. 973 4285. And we'll help you.
And the schools can help as well.
Yes.
Okay. I am seeing no other questions, and we do have a we've already voted.
Yeah,
We don't need to vote again.
We were just making sure that you had information from the
Sounds
survey during this portion of the presentation. So we are complete at this time. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I am very happy that we have the new calendar because everybody was waiting on that. They plan their lives around that. So hopefully we won't have to change it. Next item, Mike.
Continuing under education, esports program and supportive equipment. Our students enter their lives surrounded by technology. Esports can provide an atmosphere of collaboration and build social skills to engage students and help reach a different population. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it unsafe for athletes to share locker rooms, play contact sports, or pass a ball to one another, and it's even more dangerous for fans to pack stadiums and arenas that can hold tens of thousands of people at once. Yet we can still have activities with esports in a safe environment. With distance learning becoming a new normal for many of our students across the district, esports can renew a sense of competition and camaraderie and drive student achievement. Today, Chief Information Officer Rob Dixon will present the learning opportunities that are available to students through a new class for high school students and new competitive competitions in both middle and high school through esports. It is recommended the board approve the purchase of 320 esports desktop stations from RTI in an amount not to exceed $544,400 and enrollment of 5 schools in the high school esports league for 3 years at $3,000 per year for a total enrollment of $15,000.
Welcome, Mr. Dixon. We're glad to have you here, and this is kind of a whole new area for us, so we welcome your presentation.
Thanks, President Logan, Dr. Thompson, Board of Education. This is an interesting time that we're in, and I anticipated giving this presentation in a different circumstance than where we're at now, but it's really exciting to see opportunities come up. This morning, I got the opportunity to present to Wichita State University leadership on their program and where we could fit into their program. And so I kind of wanted to go over this presentation because there's a huge why here that I don't think that most educators think about. And so when you look at computing today, and you guys have heard me talk about this several times whenever we purchased the 24,000 HP LTE devices that we are supplying to our secondary schools, and you think about the mobility that our kids have, there's a huge transformation that happens socially when kids are engaged in activities. And I've shown this infographic before where you see our kids and how technology has transformed their lives. I think back to the first time, and I still have it in my office, the very first iPod. I think about that, how transformational that was. I consumed music differently, and the industry changed because of that. And so what did I learn? Well, I learned that content could be consumed in a different way. And today it's created and consumed differently. And so when you think about esports and gaming, there's a huge amount of hours being spent in this realm with our students and our adults. Many of us around here have gamed in that atmosphere. And what I want us to think about for a second is strategy and situational awareness. So when you think about this world, and right now it's got a ton of numbers on there, thinking about gaming and where that's at, how transformational has the world been in the last 6 months? How much situational awareness do we have to have as a community in the last 4 to 6 months? How much strategy have we had to use in the last 4 to 6 months? And so I got the opportunity in April to spend some time with a good friend of mine. Her name's Snow White, true name. Her family gave her that name, and she's in charge of instructional technology for Dell. While I was there were some folks from Arizona State University there, and we had a conversation at a table, and we were talking about the Discover problem that Arizona State has, where you have levels of problem solving. So there's 6 levels of problem solving. Many of them have a problem, a method, and a solution, right? So whenever you think about a level 1 problem, it's a math problem. It's something that the presenter and the solver have a known process and solution to complete. And so as you go down this model of problem solving, things begin to change. You know, I think of in a level 2, it would be a paragraph-based problem solve, like in algebra that you have, that, you know, the method may be unknown to the solver at that point. But as you progress down this path, you begin to see ranges and undefined measures. And I want you to think about those things. Think about that world that I showed you before and how the world has changed in the last 4 to 6 months due to this pandemic. And also think about how we problem solve in the future and what is necessary as a society as we start to think about ranges of methods to solutions. And thinking about situational awareness. How am I going to adapt? Because as we progress in this world that we have in today, future problem solving ties directly into gaming. And it does today because the games that I grew up with in Nintendo Land and Sega Land, those were memorization games. And I would memorize my path and get through that as fast as I could. That was a level 1 problem. All I had to do was memorize my strategy and how I got through that. Games today are different because as you think about going through that game is going to adapt. And so at that point in time, whenever that game adapts because of technologies such as artificial intelligence and others, both the presenter and the solver have an unknown method by which they're going to approach that problem. And by turn, you get a huge amount of situational awareness, a huge amount of skill in strategy, and you start to have kids connect the dots to critical thinking. And so I would characterize the reentry of school as a problem, as a level 6 problem. The presenter and the solver have an unknown way of solving that problem. And so when you look at that problem and that method and that solution and how would we address that, you can do that in a way that you can look at strategies of this one time that I'm going to go through this simulation which is a game, right? Then I might approach it 100 different times in 100 different ways. And so really, I think, built into esports in some ways, and this last June, we did a digital parenting episode, and I'd invite you all to go look at that. It's recorded. It's out on our website, and you can see how you can make esports and gaming a learning activity. It's talking to your kids. It's being present. It's asking questions. It's using inquiry to say, hey, how did you do that? And so whenever you do that, you begin to solve higher level problems for your kids, and you begin to connect those dots with your kids. And so in our program, we're looking at helping parents, because I think this is really, when you think about the infographic and the environment that our kids are in, social emotionally, we've got to prepare our kids in that environment. We can't expect them to be outside of it, because as society, we've created that, and that's what they consume. I mean, I think about whenever I grew up, my parents, my mom, as a single parent, she would just say, boy, I want you to get out of my house and don't come back until the lights come on. So out of that, I had to, build skills in social emotional, just figuring out life, playing, right? And I played outside with my friends. I kind of dealt with myself at that time. But we don't let our kids do that today, right? There's an awareness and a protectiveness that we do with our kids, but we need to do that same thing in this digital environment. And so this will allow us to engage kids in a gamification mode, to have competitions, both in an environment where we don't know what physical sports look like this next year. But this will allow us to continue to compete and allow kids to compete. And it'll also allow us to help and engage parents to say, hey, here's how we can make this a learning process and help your kids connect the dots. So this first year, we're looking at high school being Northwest, South, Southeast, West, and EI Academy, and that will be for a multitude of things. One, there'll be clubs, and I could tell you it's not something where that club's going to have 20 or 30 kids. I can guarantee you there will be hundreds of kids in these clubs. East High alone is not even in this list, and I already know that they have a ton of kids in their club program for esports. And so when you look at all of these opportunities that will be here, this will grow exponentially. At middle school, we'll start with Coleman, Hamilton, Marshall, Wilbur, and EI Academy. And so part of this is having a structure. Why EI Academy is there is because the ISC will be a central point that we could have competitions when it's safe to come back together in a central area. And we'll build a metro league where all of our surrounding communities, Mays South Complete, who has done an amazing job both helping us in training our teachers this last summer with Wichita State. Christy Custer, she's amazing. She is the program manager over May South Complete. Her and Michael Williams, I think is his name, have done an incredible job of building that program out there. And we sent our teachers that were identified for the program out there for that training this last spring, and actually finished up this summer due to some cancellations due to COVID. But got some, we're extremely engaged. And in fact, this morning I talked to Christy, and she was like, in our Wichita State presentation, and she said, it was probably my favorite list of learners because intrinsically these teachers want to learn it. And so when you have a learner that's intrinsically motivated to do it, this becomes exciting. And I think for our kids it would be exciting too, because it's meeting them where they're at. And so I think you could tackle a lot of different problems with this. If you have problems in your building with attendance, you could put the class that we'll introduce at the high school level, Gaming Concepts. Why wouldn't you put that at period 1? I'm sure you would have every kid on time to school every day, right? So it's creating opportunities to meet those kids where they're at. So high school will be, I'm asking you to approve our entry into high school esports program, which is the largest esports program in the United States for high school. We'll also have some competitions. There was just introduced some middle school Minecraft competitions that will be introduced this next year by Microsoft, and we'll obviously be engaged in those. But then also looking at since we're delivering personal devices to students, that Minecraft can be used even at the elementary level just to help kids create. And so I'll leave that open to any questions you might have here at the table.
We do have a few. Ernestine Crable?
I've had some parents say that we have to be careful that we're not training them how to do military games. My assumption is that we're picking the problems. Let the military use them for problems. We're training them with the thinking skills. I love your chart about the different levels of. When I went to college, I intended to be a math major. I was discouraged when I found out that even as a senior graduating, the answers were still in the back of the book. It's like I wanted to think things that nobody had ever thought before.
Right.
So I switched to political science. But I think that this idea of being able to enchant kids into thinking about problem solving is a great idea. I do want to ask if this purchase, there's some other areas that are not getting some of the equipment that they need. Could we add to it some things like art and photography, some of the programs into this budget purchase thing? Is that a possibility? Because some of those are not in the career and technical education part, and they haven't gotten all of the up. But I would think that some of this would even fit into that, like problem solving certainly within photography and art. But
It would be dependent upon scheduling, but those PCs could be used for more
yeah, they
than
just need some of the equipment, and I know some of them have said, they're spending all of this on esports, how about us?
Right.
So I just wondered if there's anything available, any wiggle room that we can add that.
Dr. Thompson?
As far as, I have had several conversations about lots of things, lots of content areas in our school district that don't always have all of the resources that they need. I am once we get this done and over with, I am not done and over with, I'm talking about COVID-19 and we kind of get school started. I am going to ask the team to look at all the content areas because there are many. And we have fallen behind because of 10 years worth of budget cuts. We've not recovered and getting everybody what they need to the top of the scale of the best of the best. And so I am going to be working with the team to be looking at all of the content areas and just identifying where we are currently and what is going to be needed to get us to the spaces we need, and then come up with a comprehensive plan on how we meet the needs of all the content areas. Just because we don't do one of the other, I will tell you, I respect fine arts hugely. I know that if I look at Jay Means, he would tell me he needs things in athletics. I bet you the science teachers need more stuff for their labs, more up-to-date equipment there. So that's why I don't want to just isolate out one, but I do think it's important for us to take a look at the entire comprehensive look at the district, see what we need, what kinds of things are going to be needed in those content areas to get us up to par, and then begin to figure out as a group how we make that happen.
Well, I do think that this purchase is very timely with the possibility and the likelihood that we're going to have a lot of remote education, and this is a way to teach problem solving that maybe teachers would have normally done in a classroom that can, I agree with it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Stan Reeser?
Stan Reeser, District 4. I hope 5 years from now, when somebody asks my name, I don't say my name is Stan Reeser, District 4. But Rob, just quick question, Rob. We've already started esports, correct? When did we start that?
Well, I would say some of your schools started down that path, a couple years ago, I would say. Some of them.
And
just
these,
loosely in a club
Right.
type atmosphere.
and these are extracurricular activities, or are they actual classes?
So there is a class called Gaming Concepts. It's course 6661 in Synergy. I just have that memorized for whatever reason. And that course, the content's all free in that course. It's an elective that can be taken freshman through high school. It teaches strategy.
So we do
And
have
so-
one elective class in this, and then the rest of it is club-centered activity.
Club-centered, and then we also will have a varsity. So think about, we're going to support 4 games. So of those 4 games, they're not in high violence. So Rocket League, League of Legends, Overwatch. I'm trying to remember the last one. I can't remember the last one. Anyway, those games are in there, and each one of those games will have a varsity team.
Okay.
So think about, if you have 4 games, you have 4 varsity teams, you have 4 different ways of kids engaging. So you can think about it in a sport way of like one of those being like basketball, then soccer, all of those types of areas. And so you have students that will compete in that in high school esports league. We probably won't compete in the fall, just because building a program takes a little bit of time, but probably by winter and spring, we'll compete in those opens.
Stan Reeser, District 4. I see Ben is on the list to want to talk, so he may be able to address this. But is it fair to say that one thing that we are trying to do is evolve and capture a vast growing area of interest of kids that we may have a hard time attracting to not only our district, but attracting them to education? Is that-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ron Rosales?
Ron Rosales, District 6. And just to reiterate, so this money, a lot of money here, but it's not displacing anything, any other technology group or any of the technology fine arts that we might have.
Right,
Is that
no.
correct?
These programs or these devices are made specifically for esports. That doesn't mean they've got high-end graphics cards in them. So I'm sure you could run, Ribbit or any of those other engineering programs on top of that.
Okay.
It would just be working with those schools to schedule it correctly, right? To
Okay.
make sure it's not in place of that gaming concepts class, which will absolutely be in that lab. And so,
So the student will have 2 laptops or 2 devices, right? They'll get one from school, their regular one that they're working on, and then they'll get a gaming device.
they'll have access to that gaming device because what I would go back to is that club. Even though each middle school and high school will receive 20, I could guarantee you they'll have maybe 200 kids in that club or more. And so it'll be very much a shared device.
Oh, I see, okay. And then, I don't know, Ben, if you're gonna ask about Keisha, were you gonna say anything about Keisha? Is this something that's overseen by Keisha, or how
Not
does that fit in?
sanctioned by Keisha yet.
Okay, so they're kind of behind, huh?
I
A little
mean,
bit?
I didn't say that, but I did.
Oh,
All right, thank you.
Ben Blankley?
Yeah, I wanted to mention some personal anecdotes about esports because I think it would be helpful. Because just like Rob, I'm parent of a little guy, much littler than Rob kid, obviously. But so my little guy is 5, and he and I play competitive video games with each other. So the example for elementary was Minecraft. He and I regularly play multiplayer Minecraft as long as he gets tablet time. And he, one time I logged in and he had created a whole zoo with all these different animals, all using these, and it's, just touchscreen controlled and everything. And it was super exciting to see how creative he'd been in just a short period of time. And just last night, we have a Mario Maker, which if you not familiar with it, it's a way that you can make Super Mario levels yourself and play them. And he was making them and then having me play them. And then when I would get stuck, he would say, "Oh, I got to fix it," to take it away. And he's 5. He's already doing that kind of trial and error mechanic with me. And that's just really cool to see. And then in addition, he and I will watch esports on Twitch. Games that are 5-year-old friendly, obviously. Things like Rocket League, that's cars playing soccer. It's just really cool. And much like a lot of our other extracurriculars, like Ron said, it's capturing what kids are already interested in and introducing that it is a learning process and important. And so
So Ben mentioned Twitch, which is a streaming platform. We would look at streaming some of those activities, but I want to tell a story. In Omaha Public Schools, one of my help desk personnel, her name's Regina Lupo. Her son is Dr. Lupo on Fortnite, and over the course of 24 hours 2 years ago, he raised $2.1 million for St. Jude's Research just by streaming on Twitch his game that he was playing. And so the amount of interactivity in our society is massive around esports. I just can't, it's hard to fathom. And you think about connecting the dots with your son, like when he was creating that zoo, there are rules that he has to follow for materials, how to build, all those things come into play. And behind the scenes, he's connecting those dots of, how do I build this tree? How high can I build it? What do I need to make the base of it? How do I build a fence? How long can I make that fence? There's the laws that we have in here today in real life also have rules within that space as well. So,
Mike Rohde?
Thank you. Couple of questions. You've kind of touched on the games, but you've never said, what games are we playing? I heard Minecraft.
So there's 4 different games in high school esports league for competition.
Okay.
We have in the district, as a part of our Office 365 subscription, Minecraft. So every student has the ability to be licensed for Minecraft in the district. But in competition, if outside of that club, if we want to compete in an arena, we would be supported underneath those 4 high school esports supported games.
And what are those games?
So Rocket League is one of them. League of Legends. Fortnite is another one. And I got to think about this for a second. Rocket League, League of Legends, Overwatch. So all of those are like, as far as violence, would be like Nerf type style. Like if I hit you with an object, you would just bounce back type of thing. So it's not, nobody's killing anybody else, or not high violence type games.
And that's a concern because we battle that in a real basis every day.
Sure.
And if we're saying it's okay to have, I've heard of Fortnite and not good things about Fortnite. And they don't bounce back, it's awfully bloody.
And in a controlled environment, you can have that environment that's safe for those kids.
Okay, because I sit here and think that, and it wasn't this board, but it was several boards before this, had to vote just to let our JROTC carry fake guns in color guard, because it overruled our deal, and we're now maybe trending back away from that, and that kind of concerns me.
I would ask the question, is it more appropriate to help those kids in that space if they're going to be in it?
Well, and you've brought up a couple of things to answer your question. We already have several hundred kids, if I got it right, already playing the games. Why do we need to spend $544 million? I'm sorry, $544,000. Why don't we just enroll these kids in the leagues, let them bring their own equipment, because we already do that softball. If I want to play softball, I got to bring my own bat and my own glove, and we provide the playing field.
I hear what you're saying, but when we have our students participating in activities, We provide the things that they need to be able to participate. So when we play basketball, and that's a sport, we don't ask them to bring the basketball or their uniforms. That they may pay a fee to participate, but we provide those things. When you're when you're playing an instrument, we don't ask the parents to pay for the uniforms for them, for their marching uniform. We pay for the uniforms for them to do it. So do you think about that? If we're going to ask our kids to participate in esports, then we have to have the equipment or the uniform, whatever it is that they need, to be able to participate and compete in the programming. So that's what we're purchasing, is the units that have the capacity, such as the band uniform, such as the basketball or the bat and the mitt. We're just buying that same thing for esports.
Okay. Now, another direction, I mean, all this is fine. I mean, I get it. I just want to make sure I'm clear. How does this affect Academic League?
We can put provisions on it if the district wants to, where a student has to be academically qualified.
I mean,
to
I'm talking about
compete.
Academic League. It may be the mask. We have right now in our middle schools Academic League, where they work in problem solving and, I mean, is this going to affect that? Is this going to take students away from that possibly?
It is not. Those are two separate things. And so what would happen would be that this would just be an opportunity. So if a student was in the academic league, they could still be in the academic league, and they could be in esports too, if they choose to do so. So this is just another opportunity for kids to participate. It's not replacing anything, and it's not going to supersede anything else. It's just another choice for kids who want to take part in a sport that's not where they have to have athletic ability like me. I probably wouldn't want to participate in basketball, football, or track, because I don't have those skills, but I want to be in a competitive thing. But I am good at problem solving and coming up and being creative, and so I can utilize those talents and skills that I have in another way in the district. So it's just another way to engage kids differently. So it's just an opportunity.
And my last concern is spending the $544,000 in a time that we're economically strapped. You know, I get what everybody's saying, and I'm not, you know, conceptually, I'm not against the concept. What concerns me is I'd rather see us spend $444,000 on infrastructure, because this is coming out of cap and it is general funds. It's not restricted funds that this is coming from. You know, that's a concern. We can still have the league if we, you know, paying the league fees for 3 years is not that big a deal. And, you know, and then transfer into it because next year, if we're looking at budget cuts even bigger next year than we are this year, according to the state funding that we've been seeing. And if that happens to be true, or we take a budget cut in January because tax revenues are behind, how are we going to make this up? And to have 320 computers sitting in a room somewhere doesn't seem economically correct to me, and that's my biggest concern. And it's an economics deal. It's not it's not the esports deal, and I don't know that anybody can answer that question, but that would be a big concern to me. And if the kids are already participating in it, let's supplement them. Let's give them a place to play, if that's what we need to do. If we're already doing it, great. You know, I don't know that. I don't need to know that. But, you know, if we need to get them in the league, let's get them in the league with their own equipment. And then if we get a chance to do this and we don't need to fix the face of a building or put in another $30 million worth of air conditioning because they're breaking down, or, you know, do other things, I think it's something that, you know, I would be more considerate of that. I'm for the esports. You know, I get the concept. I get the kids that want to play it. Not against any of that factor. It's the money that's bothering me right now, today, in an environment that is not what I'd like to see. And if we go through budget cuts next year and we're starting to close programs down, that's no fun. I've been through that, and I'm not going to do that again.
I just think if you have to think about where our neediest of kids might want to be able to be a part of those opportunities but can't. This is where that comes into play, as to where you can really start to level the playing field. Those students that are neediest don't have the resource to be able to do this.
And I appreciate that, but I grew up with a lot of things that I wish I had the resources for that I could give my kids that I couldn't give them because of budget constraints. And we did what we did, and we gave them the best that we could give them, and I'm proud of my kids. But, you know, I get that comment. I mean, there are kids out there that this would be a great thing to have them doing.
Yeah.
But we got to look at 50,000 kids and not 320. And that's, you know, that's where I'm concerned. And I'm concerned. I'm not saying that I'm against this. I don't want anybody thinking that. I'm just concerned because we're going to need money.
What I will tell you is for the funding, and I will make sure I look up at my finance person to make sure that I'm saying this correct. Rob has the district as a whole, Rob, has a budget as it relates to technology and the equipment and the things that are being purchased for technology in the district. He has managed within his own budget that he controls, that has not been, that, you know, that is in his wheel wagon of money, and has readjusted himself to be able to position himself to do this work. So this is within his budget, regardless of whether he spends it on this or something else. He's going to be able to spend this amount of money to support the use of technology within our school district, if that answers or helps you with the decision.
Okay, Julie, do you have any questions?
Do not.
Okay, I just didn't want you to be left out. I just have a couple of questions. Cheryl Logan, the at-large. You listed the schools that were going to get it, and there were 4 middle schools and several high schools as well. What is the plan to be able, because I could see this being a in-demand program. What is the thinking to be able to expand beyond where we can do this year?
So if you look at these high schools and middle schools, they're feeder schools. So we would expand a high school with another middle school feeder school and begin that process as I think resources are available and everything else. So I think it's making sure you can build a plane while you fly it and not try to build the whole plane all at once. So.
My second question is, I see this as a connector, just exactly like sports are connectors, music is a connector. This is another way to give kids the opportunity to participate in an extracurricular activity and get buy-in into the school and keeping their grades up and attending on time and all the things that we know help kids. Is that what you would consider this to be?
Absolutely. I think it's very much an interdisciplinary activity. And so the more we can connect the dots for our kids in those activities to what they're doing in class, right? I think it's important for us to do that. And it also helps our kids just have an awareness of that whole learning style that happens. Because it is, they are building a ton of strategy and a ton of situational awareness and being able to adapt, which are all the things that we want our kids to come out and have the capability to do.
Yes. Yeah, we want kids to learn creative thinking and problem solving. And those are issues that sometimes are hard to teach.
Right.
But this that's what this is.
Or even measure, right? This is a way
Absolutely.
of competitive measure of strategy.
And Cheryl, as we think about our strategic plan, and I'm going to bring this in to the strategic plan, and when we were out doing those listening sessions, those of you who were on the board at that time, one of the number one things that our community and our business leaders tell us day after day after day is that we can teach kids how to do their jobs. But what we cannot teach them is how to be on time, learn how to be on time. We could do that, we could teach them. But problem solving was one of the number one things, and being a thinker, a critical thinker, And if we don't expose our kids and give kids opportunities to practice how to do that, we're missing the mark on what our community has asked us to do, and that is to create critical thinkers that can come into a workplace and think themselves out of things. Because that's what makes businesses operate and run really well, are good thinkers and good problem solvers. And so we are going to begin to, as we think about and continue to move in the direction with our strategic plan, we've got to think differently about what we expose our students to, or we're going to continue to be missing the mark of what is going to transform our communities and what they're going to be looking for in the next generation of workers. And so the way we've done things in the past are great, but we've got to begin to shift, as we saw that picture with all those millennials and how he talked about the iPad and all. I mean, that's old school, but that's still what we use because that's what we know how to use. But kids these days and businesses and organizations need people that know how to do that set of skill sets. And we've got to start thinking about how we keep up with that so that we're giving our community the best that we can with the resources that we have available.
Thank you. Ernestine?
One of the things in our strategic plan is to try to raise the graduation rate. And one of my particular passions is the students on the edge, both of the very, very bright who are bored in school or the ones that are struggling, maybe not because they're slow, but because of crises in their own life. So it's the dropout, fallout, and pushouts that I want to see us be able to engage so they'll stay with us. Not related to that, there is a recent study, I just heard of it last week, in which there was one of the incarceration centers, I don't know which prison it was or what, but when they taught technology of any kind to a group, they had zero recidivism. That's a hard word to say with a mask on. But this is the kind of thing, having worked with those kinds of kids, those kids in that category, I can tell you that anything that has to do with teaching them how to use a computer or allowing them to use a computer is going to engage. They are not necessarily, we know that sports will take a kid who couldn't care less about school, academic subjects, but he'll stay in school in order to do the sports. Mm-hmm. Well, there are kids that if we can offer this to them, this may be the only place that they can. I do have a question, however, and that's, are these machines, gaming machines, going to be put in the schools or assigned to the kids to take home?
They'll be in the schools, so
they'll be in the schools, and so many kids will be sharing it from class to class to class to class. Okay, all right.
One thing I forgot to mention too, last year there were $20 million worth of scholarships to students for college.
Say that again?
$20 million worth of scholarships out of esports to post-secondary colleges.
And I will tell you, we have done a lot of research on this, and we've met with Wichita State, and they actually have a degree that's being built to be able to support this. So our kids, not only will they learn these skills, but they can get money to go to college to be able to do. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I will tell you, the kids, a lot of those kids, when they graduate from college with those degrees, they are snatched up before they could even get out of the seat. So again, we've got to prepare our kids. We want our kids to have these opportunities as well.
That prison population I was telling you about, they immediately went to high-paying jobs after they were released. But I really am in favor of this because I think it's going to hit that particular part of our strategic plan of trying to be able to give something to the kids that normally were not finding school to their liking, or that it's just not drawing them. I think this will hold them. And I really think this is a really important idea to do that. Wasn't that one of our 4 goals? Didn't we have 4 goals? And that was, so I just think it's exciting because I really think we're going to be able to help some of those kids connect to school and stay in. And they're going to, like Dr. Thompson just said, they're going to be able to not only stay in school, but then they'll be able to use the skill. Thank you.
Stan?
Stan Reeser, District 4. I move we take the recommended action on the supportive equipment for e-sport programs.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
And I'm seeing no more discussion. Julie, you don't have anything else, do you?
No, no additional.
Okay. The motion was made by Stan Reeser, and it was seconded by Ernestine Crable. And we will vote by a voice vote. Let's start with you this time, Julie.
I vote yes.
Ben?
Ben Blankley, District 1.
Sorry. I'm Julie Hedrick, District 2, yes.
Ben Blankley, District 1, yes.
Ernestine Crable, District 3, yes.
Cheryl Logan, at large, yes.
Mike Rhodey, District 5, for economic reasons, no.
Stan Reeser, District 4, yes.
Ron Rosales, District 6, yes.
The motion passes 6-1. Next item, Mike. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Consent?
Ben, do you have anything to pull from the consent agenda?
I have nothing to pull from consent.
Ernestine?
I have nothing to pull from consent agenda.
Cheryl Logan, at large, nothing to pull? Mike?
Stan Reeser, District 4, no consent items.
Ron?
Ron Rosales, District 6. I just wanted to make sure that on bids, purchasing consent, these are things that are routine, is that not
Yes.
correct? Okay. Other than that, no.
No or yes?
Or I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
We're good, yeah.
Julie? We started with you, didn't we?
Julie Hedrick, District 2, I have nothing to pull.
Okay. That means that we're ready for a motion.
Ben Blankley, District 1, I move we accept the items on the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Ron Rosales, District 6, I second.
Okay, it was motioned by Ben Blankley and seconded by Ron Rosales that we accept the consent agenda. Please start with Ron.
Ron Rosales, District 6, yes.
Stan Reeser, District 4, yes.
Mike Rhodey, District 5, yes.
Cheryl Logan, at large, yes.
Ernestine Crable, 3, yes.
Ben Blankley, District 1, yes.
Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2, yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Next item, Mike?
Under Policy None Submitted, Operations, Resolution BOE Meetings Calendar, BOE Policy 0200, Board of Education Agendas and Meetings stipulates a 12-month meeting of board meetings be adopted in July. In addition, KSA 72-1138 requires the board to adopt a resolution during July of each year specifying its schedule of regular meetings. The proposed 2021 BOE meeting calendar is included in the appendix. It is recommended the board approve the 2021 board meeting calendar and resolution.
We have been looking at this calendar for several months now, and what you're going to see that's different on today's calendar from when we looked at it the last time is we've added in the special meetings, the workshops that we've had over the last couple of weeks, actually. And we also have adjusted time for 2 meeting dates. At the August 20th and the August 24th meeting will be held at 6 o'clock in this room because we do have a board member that's going back to work and would not be able to be at a noon meeting. And then we still, with those meetings, will still be not having public speakers yet because we're still under the order of the governor with a gathering of 15 people. So as soon as we get that lifted, we will go back into having public speakers and people at our meetings. Stan, did you have a question on this?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. Stan Reeser, District 4, I promise I'm not trying to hog the motions, but I do move that we adopt the 2021 BOE meeting calendar.
Okay, it was motioned by Stan. Is there a second?
Ben Blankley, District 1, I second.
Okay. I am seeing no comment. Julie, do you have any comments?
No comment or question?
Okay, so we are ready to vote. Let's start with you, Julie, please.
Julie Hedrick, District 2, yes.
Ron?
Ron Rosales, District 6, yes.
Stan Reeser, District 4, yes.
Mike Rhodey, District 5, yes.
Cheryl Logan at large, yes.
Ernestine Crable, District 3, yes.
Ben Blankley, District 1, yes.
Okay, our BOE calendar has been adopted, 7-0. Next item, please.
Under Finance Budget Report, Administration will present the 2021 budget for first review. This item provides an opportunity for the board's information and discussion.
Thank you. Dr. Thompson?
Miss Lady is coming, Miss Susan Willis. She is here, and we are prepared to do a budget development report looking into the future for our 2021, can we believe that? 2021 fiscal year. So as you know, this is the time of year where we begin to look at what's happening and the things that are around us, and begin to start making some decisions about how we move forward with our budgets for the year. I'm sorry.
Welcome, Susan. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, President Logan, Superintendent Thompson, members of the board. I'm pleased today to give you a first review of our fiscal 2021 budget. I will issue the typical precaution that the numbers you see today are still very preliminary. In fact, just right before the board meeting, I made 2 tweaks, had to send Julie Hedrick a new version so she could have it remotely. So these numbers are still very fluid, and we are still getting information in that is impacting our budgeting process. It's not atypical for this time of year, but certainly as we present some first estimates, know that as we bring to you our August 10th version, these numbers may change just a little bit. So the first place I'd like to start is what we are projecting for the fiscal year 21 mill levy. And I've given you a 3-year historical look back in addition to what we are proposing for the fiscal year 21 budget. So if you kind of drop down to the very bottom line, you see that we are recommending a 0.21 mill decrease from last year's mill levy of 53.183. We are recommending a 52.973 mill levy. When you look at the detail, you can see that that primarily is an increase in the Supplemental General or LOB fund mill levy, which we'll talk a little bit about in an upcoming slide. And that is offset by a slight decrease in the Special Liability mill and a drop on the bond and interest. So that's kind of where the mills are going to potentially fall. I think these numbers are fairly solid. You might see a little bit of differentiation between the LOB and the bond and interest, but I think for the most part, we are still going to remain at a 0.21 recommended decrease. So as we dig a little bit more into the details, again, it's just a good reminder to understand some basic budget terminology, because you can look and compare what we're proposing for 21 and you look back at 20, and there's various kind of points in time to compare those two sets of numbers. You can look at what we're proposing compared to what we adopted last year, and that's primarily what we're going to do today. You can look at what we are proposing this year compared to our final adopted budget, which is adjusted for our final student count audit. You can look at it from the numbers we're proposing as a maximum budget authority, knowing that when those counts come in, typically those budgets are reduced, but what we're proposing is the max budget in each fund. Then, of course, as we look at our budgeted versus actual expenditures, those actual numbers are kind of purposely below the budgeted, because if we were over, we might have a problem because we would be basically out of compliance. So those are just all various pieces of terminology, and all come into play depending on what numbers you're looking at and comparing when you're looking at last year's numbers. And I am going to start, at least for this first review, comparing this year's estimated budget authority compared to the last year's original budget, because that puts our counts kind of on an equal footing, last year's estimates compared to this year's estimates. So right now in the general fund, last year we were at 381 million and change. We are estimating 391,499,334 in the general fund. That is including the special ed pass-through, but it does exclude virtual funding. And we'll talk about virtual here in a slide or two. So that increase in the general fund is about $9.6 million. This is pretty close to what we were estimating earlier in the spring. We do have a little bit more of a sped pass-through, primarily because our transportation for special ed is higher, so we are getting more reimbursement for that. We are still evaluating the impact of enrollment as far as COVID on enrollment numbers. So that is some information we would really like to see here in the next few weeks to make sure we have as good of an estimate going into fiscal year 21 as we possibly can. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go forward to this next slide. And just to show you the importance of those kind of counts, last year we estimated for base enrollment, FTE was 47,200. Actual counts on the count date, we came in about 1,000 students less, 1,000 FTE less. So that enrollment number, and especially what enrollment is on the count date, is a critical component to our budget. That base aid is critical for either the next year or the year after. But the weightings are critical for this year. So we have based this initial budget, and we'll continue to probably tweak it, but we are really looking at our historical trends and not trying to base it on what we think COVID's going to do to enrollment, because we just don't have enough information to make that judgment call at this time. But as Dr. Thompson has focused on mask up, and she just mentioned earlier the importance of enrollment, I will reiterate the importance of our families going out and enrolling, whether they know which option they want. If they pick one, it's not like we're going to hold them to that election. If they change their mind before school starts, they certainly can change at any time in these next few weeks as more information becomes available. The most important thing right now is that we capture them, that they make a selection so that we can plan for staff changes, and that they fill out all the forms. Specifically of importance is that free and reduced form. Free meal forms drives at-risk funding. Now, we might be able to, we will be able to, it'll be fine for this year because there is a grace period we can make use of as far as how that at-risk dollars are affected for this year. But next year we won't have, if we don't have the forms for those families, we don't have them for the grace period. So it's next year's budget related to at-risk dollars I'm most concerned about with the missing at-risk forms, missing free meal forms. So, and again, those forms drive other pieces of the budget as well. That's how families that's how their student fees are determined. There's just several pieces of information and processing that happens within the district that is dependent upon that particular form. All the forms are important. That one really is critical for our budget. So those three, if you want to do something to help schools at this time, enroll, pick an option, fill out a free and reduced form if you are eligible. Knowing that those counts are very important, that's why we're definitely going to look at the enrollment numbers as they come in over the next 10 days. So if you look at our fiscal year 20 adopted budget, we had shared earlier this spring that we had to reduce that adopted budget by almost $3.6 million because of variances in our counts, and that impacts the weighting. That also includes virtual, special ed, and pre-K. For every 500 students that we're off, that's a $2.3 million budget impact at some point in the budgeting process. So again, those counts are just very, very critical. Okay, so you've got a kind of a good idea of where we're probably going to land on the general fund. Let's talk a little bit about the supplemental general fund. If the board would recall, last year a resolution was adopted giving us the authority to move to 33% on the supplemental general fund, or the LOB. We did this because we knew we had transportation challenges, knowing that our contract was ending and we were under market, and we knew we were going to have a fairly large increase coming into this next to fiscal year 21. So we prepped for this occurrence. And we also stated at that time that we really wouldn't want to tap into this unless circumstances really justified it. Well, I don't know that we could have planned a pandemic, but I think we're in those circumstances. So I am recommending we plan our budget maximizing full authority to not only address the transportation issue, but just the sheer number of COVID response initiatives and needs that we are having now and that we are going to have in the coming months. Things that we haven't even thought about yet, that as staff get back into buildings, we're going to need to address. We're going to need as much budget flexibility as we possibly can have. So again, just to remind the board, what is currently paid for out of the LOB, it's the regular ed portion of transportation. So we knew we were going to have a $3 million increase in the LOB for transportation. We have and continue to make significant investment in technology support. So we know that technology is going to be key to our ability to go remote should circumstances warrant. We know the utility lines are going to be critical to push more fresh air into those buildings. Those set points are going to have to change. We will have higher utility costs. And we know 70% of this fund actually gets transferred out to other funds. And what we don't know yet is the impact of those weighted enrollment numbers on those other funds, in particular bilingual, special ed, we kind of know what at-risk is, but CTE as well. So those are risks that we need to be able to try to cover as best as we can, which is again why we're recommending the maximum authority in this fund. So what that drives as far as revenue, last year, supplemental general fund at just a little over 30% was 116 points, almost $7 million. This year, we are recommending 33% as we've calculated on the general fund right now. That would drive $13.4 million to the budget. So kind of an update to our final fixed costs that we are building into this year's budget. We are having to cover some special ed transfer due to revenue loss. This is a combination of a couple different things. Some of it's the amount per teacher. There's just a couple things going on with special ed. So we needed to cover some of that loss in special ed funding. The virtual program, obviously with EI Academy kind of revamping, we're looking at additional expenditures there. Again, that overall transportation increase that will impact both the LOB and special ed, and then other kind of contract costs, property casualty, the things that we've kind of covered with you before. We have found a few little offsets, so we have that number down to $2 million. So we're able to kind of reduce some of the other budget lines in order to get that to a smaller number than we presented to you in the spring. So right now we're looking at increased expenditures for these fixed cost items of $11.5 million. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about CARES. We shared that our CARES allocation was going to be $17.9 million, and it is. We had also shared, I believe, with the board that we would have to allocate some of that to our non-public schools within the Wichita area. We were anticipating that number to be just around $1 million. But just yesterday, KSD released their final guidance from the federal government, related to how they wanted those CARES dollars allocated to non-public schools. And because we have chosen to use our CARES across the district, primarily we needed the technology. And if we went back and made this decision again, we'd make the same decision because we needed technology. But because we're utilizing it across district, we have to support all non-public schools, not those that take Title I from us or through us. So all accredited and non-accredited schools can access a piece of this CARES funding. So we are really going to have to pull back about another $2 to $2.5 million on top of that million to make sure that we cover their needs related to CARES. And those requests kind of process through us, so we will help them with procurement and making sure that everything adheres to the rules that are related to this CARES Act. So a little bit, I don't want to use the word gut punch, it's not really good, but it was just a little bit of a surprise. We knew we were going to have an adjustment. We did not anticipate that level of coverage. So again, we've kind of had to kind of step back, look back at some numbers, kind of readjust our plans, and then we're going to move forward again. So kind of feel like one of those bouncy punching bags where you get punched, you fall down, you got to jump back up, and you got to figure it out. So that's kind of where we're at. To show you kind of where our spending has been related to CARES so far, we have expended $8.6 million. The bulk of that has been in technology that the board approved in June. The rest has been in personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies primarily. I certainly can provide a more detailed breakdown if anyone is interested. But we have $5.6 million basically approved to spend and is already somewhere in the procurement process. That's some additional technology, more PPE, more cleaning equipment, and classroom supplies. I have requests pending for about $10.5 million for other things. And that includes some loss in revenues and some of the funds related to the spring COVID shutdown. Again, more supplies, additional sub-costs, different items that we've just kind of been accumulating. And then we'll try to now adjust what we spend, where we're going to spend it from, and hopefully we have another federal package perhaps in the form of the HEALS Act, which is trying to get through some of the houses right now. On a bit of good news, the Sedgwick County CARES Act, the Sedgwick County Commission voted yesterday to distribute 3.5% of their CARES allocation, so $3.5 million of the $99 million they received is coming to county schools. They based their decision-making on the fact that we were getting CARES money as opposed to some of the other areas of need in the county. So I think that's the reason why our proportion is relatively small. To be quite honest, we were hoping for 3 to 5 million. We'll take the 1.37 we're due to get. I'm not exactly sure when that will be distributed. We haven't received those details yet. But I did watch the replay of the county commission meeting, and the 1.376 million was what was shown on their slides. So pretty confident that's our right number. They gave all the county schools a base of $100,000 and then a per pupil allocation of $25.86. And we will use that money basically to support the needs based on the previous slide of CARES. So of that 10.5 that's waiting, this 1.3 will go towards some of those needs. So that probably brings the question, where are these additional funds potentially coming from? A big player for us is going to be capital outlay. We are going to have a significant increase in budget authority, and it may end up being a little bit higher than what we're showing here, but we're going to take our budget authority and capital to $55 million. That hopefully gives us a pretty good reserve to draw upon for additional technology needs, additional facility needs, additional repairs and maintenance, improvements to buildings for safety and environmental concerns, including our COVID response, if we cannot handle it through other aid packages that might come our way. The other option for us, obviously, I don't want to tap into it, but we can tap into our contingency reserve. Again, that's one of its primary purposes, is to cover needs in emergency situations. Again, certainly I think a pandemic would fit into that bill. We'll try to use all other resources available to us before we go down that path, but it is available. But capital outlay will be a big player. With that additional budget authority is going to bring our capital balance down to about $15 million at year end. That's about 5 to 7 million lower than I would really like to see it at, but it still gives us enough remaining budget so that we can start the facilities division and safety services and those with some money in the fall before we would get aid payments in the spring. So that's always been the concern with capital outlay, is that we not spend that fund down where they can't do anything in the fall until aid payments come. So at 15 million, we're still okay. So I feel okay about that. Virtual, obviously with more kids going into EI Academy, that maximum budget authority will go up. Bond and interest, we're slated for $42 million of bond and interest payments. We've actually calculated it, all of the bond and interest payments, both principal and interest, out for the next 9 years. We are looking rock solid, even at the reduced mill levy, so I feel very good about that. We've made some really good interest these past few years. Now that we're not making any interest, maybe not the worst time to actually pull down that levy and just be able to make it through on that fund. We look very good, so I have no concerns there. Nutrition services is kind of a big question mark for me right now, again, because we don't have enough information yet out of what we've seen in enrollment. Certainly, there are some concerns. That fund lost $3 million in revenue in the spring. So and it had some reserves to adjust, but that group has been working very steadily to look at their spending options and can they reduce some items. They are cranking over there to try to figure out how to make this work. We may need to use any additional aid packages to come in and help them if no particular aid is coming for the nutrition services program from the federal government. So that's just another area that we have some unknowns around. Right now, I haven't been able to put a number to that yet. We should have that ready for you here on the 10th of August. So before I open it up for questions, just kind of a quick recap. That mill levy decrease, we are recommending an overall mill decrease of 0.21 mills. We typically get the question, what does that mean for a homeowner? That's about $3 to $4 for every $100,000 worth of homes. So it's not a lot of money, but it's in the right direction. We are recommending that we go to 33% for supplemental general fund authority in response to our known cost increases and the additional COVID expenditures we're going to have. We are estimating right now new funding at $23 million. That's both the general fund and the supplemental general fund, but realize that's based on historical trend enrollment, and we don't know what those actual counts are going to look like. So realistically, knowing that we had a $3.5 million reduction last year, just applying that same reduction for this year would put us more in the $19 to $20 million range. So it's just, again, important to know these are budget estimates. Until we actually get final counts, we have to kind of know that those monies might have to adjust. And that the CARES funds will be reduced by approximately $3 million. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. We actually have to do that calculation, so we have to go get the numbers for the non-public schools and then calculate our own reduction. So it's kind of like, hold the whip while we prepare you to be whipped. But anyway, you can tell that was a little bit of a shocker. We have to try to bounce back from. Not quite bounced back from that one yet. So. And then kind of just to remind the board of our budget timeline. August 10th, our public hearing date, August 24th, the public hearing and budget adoption. So with that, I did bring a couple resources. If I can't answer any of your questions, I may call a few of my leading experts up to assist.
We do have some questions. Mike?
Can you go back to slide 9, please?
Yes.
You were talking about additional reserve for non-public schools that we're going to have to give up because KSDE said we had to?
It's not KSDE. They just finally got the guidance from the federal groups that look at these CARES Acts and determine what portion of dollars need to go to non-public institutions. So it's not KSDE's regulations, it's federal regulations. They just finally got the guidelines at the national level, kind of put it in a digestible form and gave it to local districts. We just got it yesterday, so as we were reading through, our title services manager starts asking some very pointed questions, and we find out because how we've chosen to use CARES, which again, we had really no choice. We had to do this district level initiative, that we just have to open up a little bit more of our allocation to the non-public schools.
And you made one more comment, and I want to make sure I heard it right. You said credited and non-accredited schools.
Non-pub, both accredited and non-accredited, yes. Any,
Okay.
in the city of Wichita.
Okay, thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, going back to, you were saying something about the HEALS Act. And I know this is still in in the United States Congress, but what's the, how's that money flow supposed to go? Is it just going to be or allocated to a state, and then the state has discretion in the spending and the allocation per district, or how's that?
So early HEALS had, at least on the Senate side, had quite a few restrictions built into it. So you had to have half of your students actually reporting, in person and for half the year. So there were a lot of caveats to how it was going to work. What the final version will look like, we don't know.
Right.
I'm going to assume it will be very similar to CARES, and that the money will go to the state, and then we will receive our allocation, probably also based on Title I, similar to CARES. And so we will get a portion of whatever the state gets based on probably our Title I, allocation
Formula?
process.
It's a formula
Yes,
type?
yes.
Okay.
And then, depending on what restrictions are embedded in that particular final version, we'll have to look to see what can we use for kind of that laundry list, that kind of the $10 million we're short on current CARES needs, or, does it have to be focused on a particular, line item in the budget? That we just don't know yet. But yes, I would anticipate it flowing through the state. I also anticipate it being a drawdown, similar to CARES, in that we spend it and then we go ask the federal government for reimbursement. So it actually files on our Form 240, and we get those monies back in the form of federal reimbursement.
You said restrictions. Is that restrictions federal?
Federal, right.
Guidelines? Okay, not state.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, I guess two clarifying statements. Two clarifying statements and then a question. One is that free and reduced eligibility is a household's gross wages, and that's point in time, right? That's not over a full year.
Right.
So if a family experienced a loss of income, like in the last couple months, they may be eligible now when they weren't before.
That's correct, right. So if families have experienced, layoffs or impact from COVID, which has really impacted their family income, now is exactly the time to fill out that form, because it's not like we're asking for verifying information month after month. It's what is it now, fill out the form, and then that we determine your eligibility.
Okay. The other thing is that I've seen some friends of mine that are also parents talk about wanting to homeschool their children, but then when asked about it, they clarify they want their kids to be in some sort of a remote program. Maybe this is a question for Dr. Thompson. The compulsory attendance laws in Kansas are still fully in effect, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah.
And what that means is that it is illegal to keep your kids at home underneath the osmosis of homeschool unless you apply to the state for particular things to be able to say that you are officially homeschooling. Otherwise, you really need to enroll in a school so that you are in alignment with the law, and use our resources. I mean, we have technology for you, we have programming for you, and we have teachers that will be available to support you. So, yes, to your question.
Yeah. I've been correcting some folks, clarifying statements, and I encourage people to do that, because we do have programs, and we've got in place plans to educate all our kids regardless of circumstances or zip codes. So the question I had is on slide 2. It's where mill levies are all shown historically. Can you explain why this year bonded interest and special liability are down?
Sure. So again, a little bit of this is that when you look at the supplemental general fund, we obviously are up because of the exercising the LOB to 33%. Now, it actually isn't up as much as it might have otherwise been because the state actually built in some additional state aid into the formula for this year. So that helped that mill levy not be a 1.5, but more like a point. So that helped in that particular fund. When we looked at the bond in interest, and I actually had Piper Sandler help me do some forecasting, we looked, did we have some ability to offset that increase by reducing some of those other mill levies now that we've had 2 or 3 years of really good interest returns, and we looked at the special liability and think, okay, well now have we collected enough taxes that this fund is self-sufficient for a while? Yes and yes. So once we kind of had that information, we said, well, because we did not want to pass along a point mill levy on the LOB, even though we absolutely need that money, we pulled back on those other mill levies because they are in a good enough spot at this point in time and for the foreseeable future that we didn't have to pass along that mill increase to our taxpayers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Julie, did you have any questions?
My concern, Susan, was that in these difficult times financially for folks, that there's not going to be any increase to our taxpayers. And I think that I heard you say earlier that even though it's ever so slight, that actually there'll be a decrease in taxes as opposed to increase. Did I hear that correctly?
It's a decrease in the mill levy. They may have an increase in property taxes because of the valuation on their home. So I wouldn't want anyone to think they open their statement and they don't see a reduction and they think, well, they didn't tell us the truth. That's not the case. What we're saying is, if your value of your house stayed 100% the same, it's flat, then yes, you would have a reduction because we are reducing our mill levy. But now it's just going to be the increase will be slightly less than it would have been otherwise based on that valuation. Otherwise, we would have had to pass along a mill levy increase to exercise our authority on the LOB. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. It makes sense. Thank you very much. I think that's good.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. One, and refer back to the slide number 9, if you would, please, 9 and 10. I just want to make sure I'm looking at this correctly. It looks like on the slide 9, yes, we estimate that we'll have around 14.5 million in CARES funding. Right. And then we would have a shortfall in the next slide on our spending of around $10 million. Is that correct?
If everything that has been requested related to COVID was met, we would have a shortfall of $10.3 million. Right now, I will have to bring to the board to make some decisions, and that's really what's going to happen here in the coming months, is we're probably going to have to make choices. Do we not do it? Or do we do it and tap into contingency? Do we do it to tap into capital with the hope that at some point, either through additional federal monies or a FEMA claim, we're able to basically pay our contingency or capital back if we get additional funding. So it's going to be timing, it's going to be what are our needs, and it's going to be choices.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, right now today, we're short.
We're short, correct.
About $10 million.
Based on the needs we've identified so far, we are $10 million short in as far as what CARES would cover. So then we have to go back into that new budget and say, what are we going to use from new funding? What are we going to use out of contingency? What are we going to use out of capital?
So we are trying to dig out of a hole right now to figure out the best way to do that.
Right. And we would have been obviously we would have been in a hole even if we had the full 17.9 million. It's just kind of a deeper hole now that we have some sharing we'll have to do with those funds.
Right. And one of the ways that we're doing that is this board several months ago, or maybe even longer than that, voted that we could, when it was the appropriate time, we could go as high as 33 mills because that's the max that we can take our mill levy to?
33%, we would exercise authority, 33% of our general fund into the LOB. It's
Sorry,
not mills,
that's-
but it's a
Yeah, thanks
percentage
for
of
correcting
the
that.
general fund. You can run between 30 and 33%. We've been at 30% for a very long time. Now we are recommending you go ahead and exercise all your authority based on the unusual circumstances of this year in combination with kind of the normal transportation, well, I shouldn't say normal, it was an unusually large transportation increase in this particular year, which we were planning for anyway.
Yes, but then COVID hit us and it's thrown us in a whole different.
Exactly.
So that 33%, then, because we have already voted that, you don't need us as a board to vote again in order to go ahead and plan the budget on that, correct?
No, I'm recommending as part of kind of this first review, or I'm informing you that this is how I'm building it. You could tell me, no, we don't want to utilize the money, go rebuild it based on 31% or 32%. You could do that, and I would go do it. I would be out of budget, probably. Would I be coming back to you like, I can't balance this? But yes, you could instruct me today to say, as a board, we don't want to exercise that authority. But you don't have to basically vote on it. You would just tell me that.
Yeah.
Because you have the authority to go anywhere you want to between 30 and 33%.
Well, and unfortunately, with everything that's happened in our world in the last few months, I don't see any other option. Even at 33%, we're in the hole. Or 30, so.
Correct.
Okay, I am not seeing any other questions. So we will look forward to the next presentation. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Wouldn't you like to come down here and not bring bad news? Okay,
Relative, I guess, at this
next
point.
item, Mike.
Under miscellaneous superintendent's report,
Dr. Thompson?
I would like to refer you to a couple of documents that you have before you. There's this big, long document here that is before you. And this is the WPS COVID response plan for staff, students, and visitors. And if you recall, a little while ago, Sean was up before you. And he was sharing with you this particular document. So it just walks you through very explicitly about what happens if we have a confirmed case of COVID, experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, what happens with a close contact, household contact, and travel-related quarantine. And it just walks you all the way through exactly what people can expect when something like this occurs. Okay? So this document is for your reference, and you all had experienced this document before. It's just now and I'm going to look at this date, updated 7/29/2020, as our Chief Human Resources Officer tells us to put those dates there. And so we will continue to keep this on our website. So www.usd259/ WPS return, so the /WPS return. And this document will be available for all to see and be a part of understanding what will happen and how things will be moving along within our school system. The other document that you have before you that's a little bit upside down-ishy, but because when I turn it, everybody in the community is going to see that I'm doing this and they'll think something's wrong with me. We accidentally ran these off, but we're not going to waste paper or dollars with this document. So we're going to, it's our Future Ready Return to School Plan Summary. And so this will also be on our website and available for all to see. And this particular document are the top things to know about the Future Ready Return to School Plan. And it talks a lot about the options. It talks about remote learning will be different in what it looked like last spring. It will not look like that this time, and it will talk to you a little bit about that. You also will have the 2021 school year calendar. And again, we have that calendar will be available for families also on here. We also have number 4, that every WPS student will be provided a computer, thanks to the decision-making of this wonderful board. That is a game changer for us. We will talk about there, the face covering is there for families. And again, as of today, the Executive Order 2059 requires those individuals appropriately to wear, and will, if there are any adjustments to any of these things, we will change them. But as of today, that's what the Executive Order reads. Then we have on here the safety practices and hygiene practices that will be happening in every district facility. It gives a pretty good explicit direction from the governor's executive order, including the practices that she asks of us as it relates to social distancing and what that will mean. We have the building access will be limited, as we talked about before. Stay home if you're sick. And it talks a little bit more about specifically what we mean there. And number 10 specifically talks about we will closely monitor health conditions and be prepared to pivot in our planning and execution if warranted. And it really gives specific information for families. So if parents are really choosing, or they're going to be choosing the on-site, families should be prepared with a child care plan should illness occur in a classroom or a school to temporarily, so if we have to temporarily go in person, we will, and that will be in conjunction with our Sedgwick County Health Department. So if there's going to be any adjustments or any directive that they give to us when we're on site that we have to do something different and we have to pivot, it won't be because we just want to. We'll have to pivot because it is in the best interest of the safety of our students and our staff, and it will be in conjunction with the Sedgwick County Health Department. So I just want to make sure parents understand that on-site piece. You got to be able to make sure that you have health child care plans in case something happens in a building. You need to be able to pivot with us. So when we pivot, you got to pivot. So, and we will only do that in collaboration with the Sedgwick County Health Department. So just want to make that clear to all of our families. And all of this information is in this lovely document that you can find on our website at www.usd259.org/WPS return. And these documents will be available for you. And again, you can also go to info@usd259.org to ask any additional questions that you may have. And we have people monitoring that and responding to families accordingly. So with that being said, I also wanted to make the announcement that our Education Imagine Academy is really at capacity. It's kind of like our magnet school programs. It is at capacity at this point. If you enroll, you could be placed on a waiting list. But in the meantime, what we would prefer you to do is if you're on that waiting list, we need you to go ahead and shift over to My School Remote. You will still get a phenomenal experience there. And at some point, we're going to, I know parents are saying, well, I'm not sure what's going on with remote. I need to know more about it. At some point, we're working very diligently to get some really cool opportunities for you to really experience and see what it's going to look like for your kids in that particular model. So again, I will announce that the Education Imagine Academy is at capacity, and we would like for you to, if you want to not come on site, My School Remote is available, and it is also an amazing experience that you will be able to have with your students if you choose that option. All right. Are there any other?
There are a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Ernestine?
A lot of people are asking me, and I'm saying that just because we sign up for somebody to be on campus, if the conditions happen, even by Labor Day in this county, that the number does not go down, we will then have to switch so that everybody is remote. That at this point, we are not planning for that. But as you just said, parents have to be prepared that just because they say they want their child on campus, if the conditions in this county continue to go up and continue to be a dangerous situation, we will then have everybody remote, not just the My School Remote. Some parents have thought that no matter what, we were going to barrel through with the kids on campus. Not if it's dangerous for them, we'll go to the full remote if we need to.
And that is correct. Or if we, again, we also have temperature checks is another example. If your child comes to school and we're required by our statute to do temperature checks, and if your child has not the right number for the temperature, then we're also going to be asking that you come and pick your student up. But that does not mean that your child could not participate in the remote learning experiences if they have to exit for any reason. Or if you, as a family, end up having to be quarantined or you're having to isolate yourself, then you also would have to pivot yourself as a family to be able to, and you can, again, experience those opportunities remotely as well. So again, if I was a parent, I am a parent of the Wichita Public Schools, I'm going to have to make arrangements so that if something happens at my child's school where I'm having to remove her from the school for a situation, I've got to have a plan B for my kid. Or if the situation allows and we're not able to be in school at all in any of our sites because we are told to not do that, or we say that that's not what we're going to do, then as a family, as a parent, I need to know, okay, so what then does that mean for me? So you've got to walk your family through those situations so that you have a plan of action if any of those things happen that need to have us to pivot. Because we and this year's going to be kind of weird, but we're going to all have to learn how to pivot and have plan A, B, and C for our families as well as for the school district. We'll have to have those same types of plans.
And our primary guidance is going to be, say, Dr. Nims of the Sedgwick County Health Department, but we have the authority to make the decision based on the numbers that are in Wichita, where our schools, all of our schools are.
You will use your guide. You approved your guide, so you will use that guide, and
That
that's how
guide
this
that we
board
have,
had made the decision. You all would make those decisions.
So I just wanted to have that said out loud because there were some parents that thought that it was locked in, that no matter what happens, that their kid was going to be on campus. No. This is the option if it's optimal. How's that say it? Optimal.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, Ron Rosales?
Ron Rosales, 6th District. Is this in bilingual format, either printed or online?
Absolutely. It's in how many languages? How many languages is this translated in?
It'll be Spanish and English. Initially, we'll work on Vietnamese, and we're starting to do more and more with Swahili, so I'm not willing to commit yet.
Okay, so there you have it, Mr. Rosales.
And also, for parents, are they to follow the, where it says, stay home if you're sick, are they supposed to follow the same guidelines if they were just to call in, if they were normally sick, and then as far as?
Normal practice.
Okay, normal practice.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And again, if they want to keep learning, they can, I'm sure that there will be
Right.
an opportunity for them to continue to shift in and to do that for that time. But if they're sick and they don't feel good, then they may need to just like a normal
Right.
day. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next item, Mike.
Board of Education report requests.
Start with you, Ron.
Yeah, I was just wanting to find out, I guess a request of President Logan. Me personally, I'm kind of missing on some of the verbal input from some of the public, and I don't know if SEIU or UTW can come back or how that would work out later, if that has something to do with the stipulation about the number of people in our presence. So, and just something to consider, I'm just kind of missing some of the actual verbal
Yeah, I think we're all
things.
missing being able to hear
Yeah.
from our public.
Uh-huh.
Right now, we can't, but
Right.
that doesn't mean we can't correspond with them and talk to them in other ways.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Stan,
Stan, Research District 4, no report or requests.
Mike,
I have nothing.
Ernestine?
I just want to thank the calendar committee. I am so impressed that they came together so fast. As it was said earlier, it usually takes 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4 months.
Yes.
And here, we had a meeting last week, just 10 days ago. We had 10 days ago, we had a meeting, and poof, they came together, they agreed, everybody was cooperative. It's isn't it wonderful that everybody is fighting for the good of the whole, for our community, for our kids, and for the staff members, that we are all working to keep employed and healthy. Just thanks, that's all.
Thank you. Ben?
Yes, Ben Blankley, District 1. So our COVID numbers have been getting better. The last couple days of reporting have shown a marked decrease in slope, second differential out there, calculus shout out. Each of us has an important part to play. Outside's better than inside. I keep, saying it. Wear your masks, wash your hands, avoid large groups. We're doing the right things. Yeah, there's going to be pockets of people that are being a little weird and not doing what's right, but most of us are doing the right thing, and I'm encouraged by what we've seen so far in our community. So keep it up. Get outside, enjoy the remaining summer. There's plenty of opportunities. It's been beautiful out the last couple days, 80 degrees out and partly cloudy. I mean, you really couldn't ask for better outside experiences. I do 100%. Yeah, well, yeah, it has been humid, but I do want to acknowledge if/when we go full remote, and all of the families that are like mine that are choosing the My School Remote, I want to acknowledge all of the uncompensated care that is going to be taken up by the members of our community, most specifically women. The decisions we make are going to directly affect our community as women who step up and provide thousands of hours of uncompensated care every day. But it's just going to be an even greater challenge coming up. And I just want to say thank you. And we feel you, and we're going to support you as best we can.
Thank you, Ben. Julie?
Yeah, I want to get back on a comment that Ben made several meetings ago, and the reason I want to do that is because of our reflections about how much families may need to pivot. Even those families that are enrolling in an on-site option, we've learned that in the event that there's an outbreak at their school or many different scenarios, that there might be more kids having to stay at home than is the norm, and that might happen on kind of a quick decision with not much notice. So I want to reiterate what Ben said several meetings ago of just encouraging our community business leaders to also kind of think ahead and plan ahead and have maybe flex plans in mind, but for them also to think and plan for the potential pivots that are going to have to happen, because if on-site kids are going to have to stay home from school, then there may be workers in the family that then have to stay home as opposed to report to work. So, this affects all of us. It affects schools, businesses, families, just everyone in our city and our county. This COVID is impacting us and changing how our lives are lived on a daily basis.
Thank you. Ron, did you have something else?
Yeah, I forgot one thing, and I was just wanting to thank all the people involved with the graduation drive-bys. It was really good to see the teachers and administrators out, and thank you for the press as well, the good positive things being reported, and congratulations again to all the seniors that graduated and are moving on in some successful endeavors. Thank you.
That's a good example of us pivoting. We wanted to
Yeah.
do it way differently than we did it, and but we still were able to recognize our students, so.
And Cheryl, on that note, I should have done this. If there are principals, all of our high school principals out there, and administrators and teachers that put together these drive-bys, I'm gonna give you a shout out in our secondary office for making that happen, because that was a big, heavy lift and a haul to be able to put that on, and I just want them to know that you are appreciated.
Okay. Again, and all of us have said this, but we really do mean it. Dr. Thompson, you and your team are absolutely amazing. You know, as things come up, you're developing and you're working, and you haven't given up and you haven't gotten discouraged, and, you know, these are times like none of us have ever lived through, but it's been a joy to watch you and your team operate. And these documents that we got today are prime examples of that. I think there is maybe another example, because our staff is will be coming back on the 5th of August and working for a month, which is normally a week that they come and work. So our own staff has got some childcare problems, because if they have school-age children, they won't be in school until after Labor Day. So, Dr. Thompson, what are we thinking about with that?
Okay, at some point, there is going to be somebody going to be sending out something tomorrow morning. All right, so tomorrow morning, we will be sending out an opportunity for our staff who need some additional support during that month when we're to be in school, on campus learning and those kinds of things, that we would have the opportunity. And I don't want to give too much information because I don't know all of the details, but there will be some latchkey support throughout the day for our staff and their if they have little ones that they have difficulties trying to find some place for them to go, as well as opportunities for ages 0. I'm looking at Dr. Irving, make sure I have this right. 0 to age 5. We'll also have an opportunity for our staff members to be able to have support during that time. So because we know that usually it's a week, it is a little bit longer of a period of time, and that may cause a little bit of difficulties for our parents, but we want to provide that service. And the information and all of the details, I don't really know all of them, but we will have something out, when you say? Tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And I think that's a prime example of how we were getting emails, and you were too, and your team worked very diligently to try to figure out how to solve that problem. So we're all in this together. We continue to say that, but it is so true, and we have to remain flexible. So thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Next item, Mike.
New business?
I am seeing none. Julie, do you have any new business?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Next item.
Executive session?
Okay, because we have Julie on remote, we will need to use this room, so we'll need to clear the room so that we can move to an executive session. But I need a motion. Mike, would you please read that?
I move the board recess into executive session to discuss a matter relating to preliminary acquisition of real property related to operations pursuant of the Kansas Open Meetings Act, exception regarding matters relating to non-elected personnel as allowed by KSA 75-4319B6, and the board will return from this executive session at 2:45 in this room.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second it.
The motion was made by Mike and seconded by Ernestine.
Cheryl?
I'm sorry?
Before we vote on that, instead of 2:40, can we take a 5-minute break
Yeah.
before we do the executive session? Does that still give us time to get to 2:45?
Well, let's just bump that up 5 minutes.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Mike? It's your motion. Instead of
I'll change the
2:45, it
motion
would
to come
be
back at 2:50.
2:50. And we'll take a 5-minute break, because that'll give us a chance to move the room and everything. So Julie, just hang on. We do have a motion by Mike and a seconded by Ernestine. Please cast your votes, starting with Ron.
Ron Rosales, 6th District, yes.
Stan Reeser, District 4, yes.
I need to ask a question here. I just reread this, and I didn't read this before I did, and I apologize. Tom, or Alicia, I need to ask you. It says, Open Meetings Act accepting regarding the matters to non-elected personnel, but we're talking about real property. Did this get crossed over? Then I'm sorry I didn't catch this before. This is saying the same thing.
Okay, can we have some clarification, Tom? So that we're sure we're
Mike's
going
got
out
it.
for the right reason.
Mike's got it. I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't see that before I read it.
So there's nothing about personnel, it's just real estate.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, just reread that, Mike, so that everyone is clear.
I move that the board recess into executive session to discuss a matter relating to preliminary acquisition of real property related to operations pursuant to the Kansas Open Meetings Act, exception regarding matters related to real property as allowed under KSA 754319, and the board will return to this room from executive session at, I'm going to say 2:55 now.
Okay, so the motion is 2:55, and we will take a 5-minute break before we begin. Now we're ready to vote. Ron?
Did we
Ron
have a
Rosales.
second on that second
Oh,
motion?
Yeah.
second.
Oh, Mike
Sorry.
motioned. Ernestine, are you still seconding?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, so the
Ron
motion is by
Rosales,
Mike,
District
seconded by Ernestine.
6. Yes.
Stan Reeser, District 4, yes.
Mike Rhodey, District 5, yes.
Cheryl Logan at large, yes.
Ernestine Crable, District 3, yes.
Ben Blankley, District 1, yes.
Julie?
Yes, Julie Hedrick, District 2, yes.
Okay, the motion has been accepted 7-0. We are in executive session. Thank you. To call the meeting back to order. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Ben Blankley, District 1, I move to adjourn.
Ernestine Crable, District 3, I second.
Okay, the motion for adjournment's been made by Ben and seconded by Ernestine. Please cast your votes orally, starting with Ben.
Ben Blankley, District 1, yes.
Ernestine Crable, District 3, yes.
Cheryl Logan at large, yes.
Mike Rhodey, District 5, yes.
Stan Reeser, District 4, yes.
Ron Rosales, District 6, yes.
And Julie Hedrick has dropped off the phone line, so the motion passes 6-0. We are adjourned.